All around the world, politicians and bureaucrats are dreaming up new ways to tax the rich. Public spending is out of control in large economies like the USA, the UK, and the EU. Central banks have been printing fiat currencies like there's no tomorrow. It's always more popular to tax the rich because there are much fewer of them. They can't, by themselves, vote politicians out of office. Wealth taxes are being promoted in countries around the world. They are very popular with the populace, with most people supporting new ways to tax the rich. Senator Elizabeth Warren has called for a wealth tax of 2% on fortunes of more than $50 million and 6% on assets of over $1 billion. She said, "It's time to make the ultra-rich pay their fair share." In the UK, there have been suggestions of a wealth tax on those with assets of as little as £500,000. It's now more important than ever for those who have even a modest six-figure net worth to take action to protect their assets. Let's look at 7 strategies you can use to protect your assets. Transfer assets to an overseas corporation owned by a foundation or trust. When your assets are owned by a trust or offshore company, they legally don't belong to you anymore. A trust, by its very nature, has no owners. Jurisdictions such as Panama, the Cook Islands and Nevis have strong privacy and asset protection provisions for trusts and foundations. Careful planning is essential, but having assets owned by a trust is one surefire method to avoid a wealth tax. Buy gold and silver, held securely overseas. Precious metals are the ultimate hedge against inflation. Gold has been money for 5,000 years and it'll still buy the same basket of goods it did 100 years ago. Gold and silver, held securely overseas, is not usually reportable on tax filings and therefore would be difficult to tax. If your gold holdings owned by an offshore trust, it would be impossible for any wealth tax to be applied on it. Buy overseas real estate. Overseas property is a key part of any asset protection scheme. Like precious metals, overseas real estate is not reportable to most tax authorities. It can be owned by an offshore company and any rental income generated from the property can go there. A plan B should always involve real estate in a safe overseas jurisdiction where you can go in an emergency. Cryptocurrency is another asset class that is normally not reportable. Privacy coins like Monero are difficult to trace or seize. Your funds held in crypto can be owned by your offshore trust, making them unreportable for any wealth tax. Borrow against assets held in your own country. With a wealth tax in place, any assets held in your home country would be at risk. One strategy to avoid asset seizure is to make sure they're loaded with debt. You can borrow against assets from commercial lenders and use the cash generated to buy overseas assets. You can also borrow money from your own company or trust and put a security in place over the assets. Gift assets to family members. It's likely that a wealth tax will only kick in above certain levels. In the UK, £500,000 has been suggested. In the US, the figure of $50 million has been mentioned. You can make sure you keep your assets below the threshold amount by transferring assets to trusted family members. Plan to move away from high-tax countries. The ultimate escape from a wealth tax is to move yourself and your assets out of high-tax countries. If you have a business that's not dependent on location, you should be asking yourself why you're still in a high-tax country. At least set up a base somewhere else and have a home and a residence permit. A residence permit can eventually lead to a passport in a new country. That will make it possible to renounce your original citizenship to avoid the wealth tax if necessary. It's obvious that a wealth tax is coming to many countries. It's important that you start planning now to avoid this affecting you. It'll be too late after the wealth tax has been introduced. We've outlined a few solid strategies here, but there are many more things you can do to protect your assets being devoured by a wealth tax. Would you like to have safe, hidden, and untouchable wealth? Your Wealth Fortress is a free report from Liberty Mundo that will show you how you can protect your assets. You'll learn unique and valuable strategies for keeping your assets untouchable and untrackable by anyone. You could have millions, even billions of dollars, and nobody would know it, find it, or touch it. Not with a team of the best global lawyers, not with the most powerful government on their side. And when you die, it will pass quietly, unnoticed, and untaxed to your heirs. It's all detailed in our special report titled Your Wealth Fortress: Bulletproof Structures to Protect Your Assets. Please follow the link in the description to get instant access and start implementing the strategies to protect your assets.